Another pretty epic 24 hours in the crypto market. Jerome Powell letting us down with Fed rate cuts, and in fact going one better and basically sticking a giant middle finger up at Donald Trump. We actually saw the Bitcoin market dump while people accumulated huge amounts without telling anyone. And then we got the announcement of the official Strengthening America Through Leadership in Digital Financial Technology. We're going to break down what that means and what it means to you and why you should absolutely be dialed in for the most epic bull run in the world. I know people are saying we're going to zero. I think they're liars. Anyway, with that being said, smash up the like button to a brand new all-time high. Let's get into it. So, like we said, Jerome Powell let us down. Now, I guess, look, if we're totally dead honest, we never really thought we were going to get rate cuts. But what was bad news is not only was the monetary policy and the federal fund rate kept the same, again, everyone predicted it was what he said afterwards, specifically, in my view, digging at Donald Trump. Everyone knows Trump wants him to reduce rates. In fact, it's very public, the fact that Trump wants him to reduce rates. But Jerome Powell came out with some very interesting statements saying this: higher tariffs have begun to show through more clearly for prices and some goods, but their overall effects on economic activity and inflation remain to be seen. He also went on and said that a reasonable base case could be the effects of inflation will be short-lived, i.e., this kind of whole tariff narrative will just be a one-hit wonder and then everything should settle down. He also went on and said that his obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored, i.e. keep it low and keep the jobs market going. And he also talked about the fact that they would be positioned to learn more about the market and make decisions of due course. Now, what he didn't say was that they're going to drop rates in September. In fact, going as far as to deliberately not speak about that, which I think is kind of a bit of a disappointment. We actually saw the whole market prediction move about 20%. But I mean, I must have said this about a million times this channel. You know, whenever the market gets fearful and everyone's talking and telling you the market's going to zero, this is where you see massive wallets coming in. In fact, $1.2 billion worth of Bitcoin were purchased earlier on today. Now, this was ahead of the Fed rates, but we actually saw a bit of selling from the European markets and the Asian markets over the course of the last night. The reality is people bought the dip, and they bought the dip, in my opinion, on two things. The announcement of the US economic growth, 3%, which is a pretty strong move, actually, shattering economics expectations. And actually, it was negative in the first half of the year. Overall, for the year, I think it's relatively decent, but a 3% growth is pretty epic. And then the hammer dropped on this: Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology. Basically, 166 pages of relative regulatory framework of what it means to basically be a digital asset holder, treasury company, and everything else. Now, listen to what Hines says, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this.
What's the update on a potential Bitcoin strategic reserve?
Well, look, we have it. It's been established through executive order in the SPR. We also have the strategic national stockpile. The digital assets national stockpile. I think that, one, we wanted to recognize Bitcoin for being unique, and we talk about what that looks like and kind of the threshold that Bitcoin has created. It's in a class of its own, and everyone recognizes that. But we also wanted to give credence to the work and the development that's happening across other ecosystems, and that's why we have this national stockpile alongside. This actually requires some labor to get this set up properly. You have to build the infrastructure. You have to make sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's to get this done the right way and have long-term success with it. But I've said ad nauseum, we do believe in accumulation, obviously in budget-neutral ways, as the president's outlined. But there are countless ways that we can engage in that. We'll act on those that can be most expeditiously implemented. And I think that, people will be very pleased with the direction that we go in, and we'll start moving on that in short order. But obviously in this report, if you read the first Digital Asset CEO, we're tasked with creating a clear and robust regulatory framework. And so that's what we focus on here. We understand the importance of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're enormous fans of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin community, and we want to deliver for them as well, and I'm certain that we will.
How much Bitcoin does the federal government have?
I can't discuss that right now.
Come on, give us a ballpark.
I can't.
Is it going to be made public?
There are several reasons in which we're not disclosing that at this time. There might be a time in which we do. But what I will say is, we want as much as we can possibly get. And that's what I continue to say, and we're going to continue to work on that.
So clearly there is a number of demands here, and clearly there's an agenda around a reserve, a stockpile, and everything else. If you go to 164, this is a very interesting page. It breaks down exactly what they're talking about when it comes to the Bitcoin strategic reserve and the US digital asset stockpile. Now, they're very much playing their cards close to their chest, but it is coming. This is going to send your bags to some crazy prices once the US start to buy. And the thing here is that many of the countries will follow suit, and you're absolutely going to get Russia, China, as well as many others, all start to buy it. Now, there's a couple of key things to note here on this, where it talks specifically about the executive orders that were brought in as to why, but then I guess how they're going to do it. You heard Hines there talk about what they've got to do, and actually it does require a little bit of legwork to get in, but the reality is they are going to get a treasury and a reserve stockpile, and they're simply going to buy Bitcoin. This is good news for everybody. And like I said, we'll certainly see our bags pump to oblivion. That's why you're seeing more and more treasury companies start to get involved. Look at this. This chart showing here the amount of market cap of public companies holding cryptocurrency. Obviously, everyone's heard of Strategy, bought over $2 billion, but it's all the ones we don't know. And the more accumulation we are seeing, it only tells me that the market is definitely warming up. And we are very much early on in this big bull market final phase, as many people have talked about. And you can see that just by some of the key things that are coming out. So very, very bullish. And then equally, understanding the fact that the market is cooling. This is just natural cycles and how we move. If you take a look at last year, in March, we saw this big spike up and then it cooled off. Back in the last year, the big run up post the halving, again, we cool off. And we're doing exactly the same. In my opinion, we'll then see a blast off. You can see the white line there moving up in terms of price. So it's just the normal move in the market before I think we go way higher. So like I said, a pretty crazy day in the markets. Jerome Powell trying his best to stick a middle finger up at Donald Trump and crash the crypto markets, and then followed by a pretty in-depth regulatory review of what the US is going to look like as a leading power in the cryptocurrency market. And that's where I get to. I absolutely believe we are going way higher. And even when you look at today as an example, or yesterday, if you're watching this video later on, the fact of the matter is that we actually saw a big wick down, breaking underneath the trend, but then being bought back up aggressively. And this seems to be the story right now when it comes to digital assets and Bitcoin. So as always, we are going to keep you dialed in, because there, in my opinion, is going to be some pretty crazy things happen over the course of the next couple of weeks, and expect, my view, a breakout for Bitcoin coming very, very soon. It's just going to take one thing, and that's Trump buying a little bit of Bitcoin. So let me know what you think of all of this. Let me know what you think of Jerome Powell's decision not to cut rate cuts. I'm super interested to get your thoughts on it. And remember, we are deleting all of those scam bots down there, making sure that actually we can just have a thriving community that's built to make sure their portfolios are stacked this bull market. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.